Welcome to the Temple of Flame. And today, Faithful Acolytes, we take a look at this. And what this is from the Ro-Tel, it is the extra hot diced tomatoes with ghost peppers. So I didn't even know this was out. I happened to be in the aisle where vegetables are. This is a fruit, I know, but it's in the vegetable aisle in most grocery stores, so we won't stand on ceremony too much with all that business. So anyway, I was over in the aisle. I was getting some tomatoes and some beans and just different items for stuff I was making. This wound up being in a 7-pepper chili that I was playing around with to use some chili flakes and just different other things, just to see, you know, how we could kind of amp things up. And usually I get there, so they've had a spicy version, I guess, for a while. This is not one of the flame roasted. That's usually what I get. But I think they've had either habanero or jalapeno, I forget which, in the past. And this one, I was like, you know, I kind of have to do it with the ghosties. Kind of have to do it. So here you can make a cheese dip with the Velveeta. Yeah, no. All right, so we've got, usually I get the San Marzanos if I'm making something Italian, but Ro-Tel is fine for stuff like chilies and so on. So is there a scale on this? I don't see one. I'm just going to keep interrupting myself, aren't I? So you can see the ingredient list. There we have ghost peppers. So I took a picture of all the stuff that actually went into that chili. That's in the community tab if you're interested. And I thought, all right, well, I should get another can of this and just do it separately, because I don't think I've ever seen anyone ever that I'm aware of do a video on this. And it does feature my favorite super hot. And it does have, like, the habaneros is fine. To me, I'm just not probably going to do that, but you know, for that sort of thing. But I thought, okay, ghost peppers, I got to figure something out. So that is what this video shall be, is me figuring it out. So we're just going to open it for starters. Okay. And let's get that can lid out of there. See, let's just have I mean, it looks like canned tomatoes. I don't think we're going to see, is that a bit of a pepper there? That could be a bit of a pepper there, but it could also be part of a tomato, or there is jalapenos in here as well. It's probably that. Definitely these are sort of bleached out looking, quite cooked. So I guess I'm just going to try some of these and just see how they are. It smells just basically like canned tomatoes, just opening up this can. But let's give it a whack and see what we have. Interesting. Wow. You get super hot heat almost immediately, but the flavor is definitely not that. There is a bit of bitterness, but the things like the onion powder and the garlic powder are a little bit more forward. It almost is like they have taco seasoning on this. Got a little bit, so there's natural flavor to it. I don't think that's extract, but it could be. I am getting a little bit of a burn already out of the gate. I'm not going to sit here and just eat a can of tomatoes like this, which would be silly. I'm not really one for that. My dad, back when he was, you know, still around, he liked stewed tomatoes, canned tomatoes, and so he would eat them just with sugar on them. You just, it's just. I don't even. I still to this day don't know quite what to make of that. Maybe that's the thing. Maybe people do. I don't know. Leave me a comment, I guess, about something that you do or like. But yeah, he would eat just stewed or canned tomatoes with sugar on them. So I won't be doing that. What I decided to do was, so we're gonna make some bruschetta. Even though this is somewhat Southwest-ish Mexican sort of flavored a little bit. So I made what's essentially crostini at this point. Just olive oil. This happens to be sourdough bread. You should probably, this is, I don't know how that's going to actually turn out. Usually use like French bread or Tuscan bread or something like that. These, interestingly enough, so I brushed these with Captain Clyde's Cannonball Crush just because I was interested to see what happens if I put an actual garlic hot sauce on the bruschetta. So we'll find out. We will find out. So, and I'm gonna make. I'll see how this is. If this is good, I'm just gonna. Maybe I'll just finish out the whole loaf of bruschetta. I don't like it. You gotta. Normally you would use fresh tomatoes here. Obviously we don't have any fresh tomatoes at hand. I guess not obviously, but I don't have any fresh tomatoes at hand. Take my word for it. Take my word for it. Trust me, trust me, trust me. I wouldn't lie to you. I try to not get too much liquid here. So usually there's a lot of different recipes for this. So I see a lot of people will do stuff like they'll make chopped tomatoes and maybe put a little bit of garlic in there, and they'll put a little bit of fresh basil in there, basil, and they'll just make a sort of almost a tomato sort of relish or compote possibly, just like so. This one has is that a heel? Yeah, I don't want the heel in there. Okay. All right. Oh, this is going to use up pretty much the whole can. Interesting. Nice, just a nice little bit of heat here. We'll see though how this actually shakes out, because maybe by eating what's essentially going to be the entire can. On some bruschetta, maybe I will get a little bit of, maybe there will be some punch to the party here. All right, there's not very many of these left. I think I can just find room here somewhere. So the rest of it, well, not quite half this can is liquid. There's definitely, these are definitely jalapenos. So there's, oh, we got a little more there. Where can we put it? Let's put some here. Let's just distribute it around. So I'm not doing that though. I'm not making the actual relish or combining stuff. It's about a third of its liquid, I guess. That's all the solids that are in there at this point. Put the lid back in there, and we'll put that over here. How about right there? Okay, so these are salted. Normally you would add salt to the proceedings. I am definitely adding black pepper. Peppering my table too from the looks of it. All right, so I got this. I couldn't find any actual leaves. I was gonna actually just cut some up, because what I like to do is I like to cut them into slivers, basically. But I couldn't find any slivers, so I had to buy this chopped. Let's see how fresh it is. It'll work. So we're just going to sprinkle some basil on here. And generally this is made This would be better with fresh basil, no question about it. I gotta figure out something to do with this now. I guess I can make a spaghetti sauce or make a little lasagna possibly. I have made lasagna on. There's videos of that. If you're interested, you can check that out as well, of me making lasagna. So most of the time, like I was saying, I'm distracting myself here. It is a Parmesan, maybe a Parmesan Reggiano. This one happens to be Asiago, Romano, and Parmesan cheese. And I thought we would just get just a little bit fancy with it. Usually what I do with this, so if I'm making this, usually what I do is I put shaved Parmesan on here. But I thought, you know, it would be interesting to try Asiago and Romano and Parmesan. Let's have a little taste of it, though. Oh. Ooh, I like that. I think I like that better than I like just Parmesan by itself. I'm not a huge fan of Parmesan, if I'm being honest. I do like me an Asiago. I do like me Romano. It's not like I dislike Parmesan. I've had it. It's one of those foods that I've really had a lot of over the years, to the point where I'm like kind of over it. I'm sure we all have foods like that. All right, so we're just gonna doll this up, and then I'm gonna go throw this back in the air fryer for just all I'm doing. I've already toasted the bread. That's ready to go. It's gonna sog a little bit from the tomato, but shouldn't be too bad. So I'm gonna whip on over to Yield air fryer, and I'm gonna melt this cheese, and we're gonna come back and have some nummies. Okay, and here is what they look like. Look pretty good. Got a little bit of caramelization on the cheese. Alright, nice and toasted up. Listen to the crunch. Alright, this is the one with the Cannonball Crush. Very interesting. Obviously, this is much better. This dish is much better if you don't use canned tomatoes and you use like fresh. I like to use the cherry tomatoes. A little sweet, a little lively. But I was curious to see if this could even be done. Fresh basil would be way better too. I'm not sure the Cannonball Crush is working. So I'm going to give this a legit one. This adds a pretty impressively punchy level to tomatoes, especially for mass market canned stuff. Like, I'm actually pleasantly surprised. All right, I'm gonna go with the regular one now. This one will probably be more crunchy. Interestingly, so that one was a smaller piece, and it actually got a little bit more toasted. This one, the center is a bit soft. This is quite good. Man. I wish those were not. This is kind of actually doing bruschetta in all the wrong ways. I'm picking not only not fresh tomatoes, but ones that have been seasoned more towards the Southwest Mexican style vibe. Which is great for those dishes. But a good bruschetta is going to be lively and impart a lot of freshness to it. This is easily the hottest bruschetta I've ever had. Easily. I'm very impressed with these. I didn't realize they were that punchy. Wow, quality. I mean, credit where it's due. It's the first time I've seen somebody say something in the sort of mass market field that is, they called it extra hot and actually is. Again, compared to that other stuff, but there's enough of a punch there that I think it might take some normies by surprise. I love it though, it's really good. It does not make a good bruschetta though. I'm just going to be honest there. I do think the flavors are good for what I've created here. Especially the Asiago and Romano cheese with Parmesan was the good move. But this is a dish, a very crunchy dish. It's really about liveliness of fresh flavors. This basil is really weird because it's a step removed from the dried shaky basil, but it's not quite all the way into actual fresh. I don't know why I couldn't find fresh basil in the store. I found every other herb that one may want, dill and the whole kit and caboodle, but I could not find basil for some reason. Having fresh basil would improve this substantially. This is a fairly easy dish to make as well. I was debating doing a cooking section, but is there a reason for me to show you me brushing olive oil onto bread before toasting it in an air fryer? Everything else you saw. Or to brush on hot sauce. And you saw the coloration. That's a good starting point. Sourdough is actually, it works fairly well here because it's kind of forgiving. and that it's not just completely dried out like a cracker. There's still some good chew to this. All right, last one with just the regular stuff. That last one was the last of the Cannonball Crush. I don't believe I would attempt to make bruschetta with Cannonball Crush again. Hear that crunch? Yeah. I will give this a legit one. Not more than that, though. And I didn't have the juice, obviously, nor am I going to drink it. But I did eat all the tomatoes that were in there. Or, I guess in a minute. Sourdough, while it's relatively fresh as a bread, I like a lot. But in my view, is actually one of the worst breads when it's stale. But I suppose no breads are really very good when they're stale. So, it just seems that sourdough can get kind of stale quickly. That may just be my impression, though. Not really a big bread guy. Although I have made a bread from Ass Cooking on this video series. You can check that out in the Everything Else playlist, where this will also live. I do see where they could say that draining these tomatoes, or not, like I said, that's a lot of liquid though to throw into a cheese dip, so I wouldn't do that. But draining the tomatoes and then throwing them in to make a cheese dip, I think would not be a bad move. Or so neither a nice queso, or you could make maybe throw them in with some beans or something. I don't know. Change up the whole bean dip thing. Okay, so I've got a good solid kind of all the way around nice little smolder here. It's not out of hand or anything like that. But yeah, I think giving these a legit one, I think they've earned that. Even though that may be a little bit of a push, but they're surprisingly decent heat for this kind of a product. Like I'm pleased beyond measure to have found that. I will say that what I did was, I mean, you can make it that way if you want, I guess. Try it out. Wasn't great, I would say. You know, so using fresh tomatoes and kosher salt, and then the basil on top, fresh basil on top, and then the cheese was good. The cheese was perfect. Definitely use that triple cheese. That was fantastic. It imparts a certain quality to the dish that was not present there. What I had was certainly tasty. No problems at all there as far as with flavors. But that's not a good way. That's not a good representation at all of bruschetta. You could say I did a bit of a disservice there, but it was the best I could actually kind of do to get this in that setting, I guess. It wasn't my fault the stupid store didn't have fresh basil, but oh well. What are you gonna do? You want to test out the tomatoes with ghost pepper. And you need some sort of vehicle to do that. So I guess you could call it a modified bruschetta. Like I said, it didn't taste bad or anything like that. It just is not the best version of that dish can be. And I'll just kind of leave that part there. As far as this though, yeah, this is fantastic. If you want some heat with your canned tomatoes in a sort of, like I said, Southwestern Mexican style vibe, you know, you put these on tacos, for instance, instead of fresh tomatoes, I suppose. Bit of heat there. In chili, fantastic. Like with chili, you know, I have filmed chilies in the past as well. I think it was one of the General's hot sauce videos I did. I did a chili for that. And I was debating actually doing that for this as well. But really, how can I make this the star and properly discuss it and evaluate it if it's mixed in with, you know, 15 other things? It's not a possible thing to do. So, and you know, and it's not interesting to me, like doing chilies I think is actually hard because most of the time you're opening a can, dumping it into something and then throwing it on to cook for, when I made that chili, it probably cooked for about 5 hours, give or take. And that's not, unless you pre-cook it before you throw it in there, but for me, it's going to cook for 4 or 5 hours. I'm not pre-cooking anything. Why would I? That's a waste of time. And so to me, that just wasn't an interesting thing for me to try to do for this. But this one, you know, there's not a whole ton of dishes, I don't think, that really have tomatoes as the main star. I could have tried to make a margherita pizza, I guess. That would have been, I think, interesting. But again, these, like I said, are pointed at a fairly specific direction. Which I didn't actually quite even realize until I made this other thing. But they worked okay there. Bruschetta is a pretty flexible dish, I think, relatively speaking. So, but yeah, I knew I wanted to do a video on this just because I don't think I've ever seen tomatoes with ghost pepper. To me, it was just like a really wild combination. And I didn't, like I said, I literally stumbled on this. And, you know, the more attention, this seems like maybe an outlandish video, but the more attention I can bring to companies entering into that space so that there will be hopefully public interest and people at least will be aware of it, the more, the better off for everybody, because then hopefully companies will feel motivated to continue putting in products in that space, and then we all get to enjoy them. So that's kind of my hope for any of that. But again, like, especially for a big company like ConAgra to come out with a product like this, I am definitely impressed. It is good tasting. Again, kind of a Southwest Mexican style vibe, but the flavor is quite good. It's certainly not San Marzano, and it's not as good as fire roasted. For me, that's my preference. And it doesn't work as well as raw tomatoes on bruschetta, but very respectable heat for what it is. And what more can you ask for? We're just going to leave it right there. So definitely, if you do have something where you might want a canned tomato product, see if this is on the shelf. This is well worth a look, as long as you're cooking something in those styles. I guess if you could maybe mix it with Italian, because you're going to have enough other spices anyway, that probably it won't read through as well. So give it a go there. But that is going to do it for this time. That was the Ro-Tel Extra Hot Tomatoes with Ghost Pepper. Now go forth in peace to serve the flame.